One. Hello, this is Brian Purdy with the Florida Aviation Network. Today, once again, at the Regional Air Cargo Carrier Association conference in Scottsdale, Arizona. Today, I am with Mr. Fred Bedard of the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. This is his first time here also, but we're learning more about how Massachusetts is looking to implement advanced air mobility. Good afternoon, Fred. How are you doing?
Good, Brian. How are you?
Great.
All right.
So tell us a little bit about what all you've had to do to prepare Massachusetts for AAD.
Sure. It'll be my pleasure. So essentially, within Massachusetts, we've got a very robust aviation system. We've got about 35 airports. Of those 35, 3 are managed by an organization called Massport. So what I'll be referring to is those other 33 or so airports that aren't managed by the Massport organization. Of those, we are looking at probably 8 to be picked for potential electrification for the support of electric aircraft. And so we're not really looking at aircraft. The state's not looking to buy aircraft, that is eVTOLs or electric aircraft per se, but we need to look at infrastructure. And one of the things that I found about 8 or 9 months ago, there's a lot of airports that don't have the necessary power requirements, and by that I mean 3-phase power coming into these airports. So our first kind of line of business, if you will, is to audit all our airports, build a plan around electrification with us, the power companies, the airport managers, as well as the companies that we would be buying chargers for to support both electric vehicles in the parking lot as well as aircraft out on the flight line. And so it's a big undertaking, but I would like to say just within 3 weeks ago, we got our first airport that is in Marshfield, Massachusetts. That was basically completely electrified, and for that celebration, we had Bedard aircraft from Vermont come down with their electric Lear aircraft and got charged up, and just to signify that we're in business. So first airport down, 32 more to go, which will take a number of years, but that's really what we've been doing right now, is looking at infrastructure, Brian.
So of those 32 left, are you foreseeing them to go quickly now that you've done it the first time, or is each one unique?
Yeah. Well, let me answer it this way. They won't go quickly, number one. And they aren't unique per se. I think the uniqueness would be those airports that already have 3-phase power on site. That would reduce costs and make things happen a lot quicker. But as far as the airport electrification goes, we want to get into a cookie cutter kind of production, because it's really charges out in the parking lot for EV vehicles, passengers and so forth, and charges on inside the gate, if you will, for the aircraft coming in. And so that's a pretty cookie cutter way of doing it, but it's making sure the power is there. And lastly, and most importantly, is the budget. Putting in a charging system, say it was maybe 2 or 3 chargers for cars out in the parking lot and an aircraft charger, you're probably talking at least $300,000 to $500,000 if you have 3-phase power on the site. So it's an expensive proposition. And don't forget, we've got permits and other things to get signed by their local cities and other authorities. So that does take time as well. So I would say per airport, it would take probably 1.5 to 2 years to get all of that done.
That's not really that bad.
No, it's not. If we could do it in parallel, that would be great. And I think part of the process is, once we really figure out a really smooth process, we'll probably be doing more than one, because each airport typically is in another city, another area, and so we could get people started and they can get through the process. So we could probably put a little bit of parallel activity going on there and get them done quicker.
Now, most of the electric, are they coming through utilities, or is there aspects of potential alternative energy sources that might be able to be used?
Yeah, so great question. So typically it will be directly from like our power utility is one of the power utilities we've been working with is Eversource, so we would be dependent on getting power sourced by them. However, we have one airport that would probably be our next airport. It's in Hyannis on Cape Cod. They right now are completely powering their airport with solar energy. And so they have solar on site, and it's 20 acres. And they can actually power everything they need. And this is not a very small airport, actually. We've got JetBlue, American Airlines just signed up to be in there, and Cape Air. Cape Air does passenger as well as regional cargo for the New England area. And so it's, you know, we're using solar to power a fairly large infrastructure right now. And so other airports, if they have the ability to put solar, that might be another, you know, part of the equation, is to bring the solar into the facility of that airport up front, get it installed, and then start using that solar energy to power the chargers and so forth. So it could be a much more economical way of doing things,
Yeah.
and cleaner too.
Especially in the long run. Now, is Massachusetts the first state doing this, or are there other states that you're benchmarking off of?
There are definitely other states, not many. I would say probably right now, certainly no more than 10 that I know of. There's maybe about 5, 6 that are out there doing it. I know out in the West, I think the state of Utah is doing some stuff. New York, Georgia, the Carolinas. I think they've been motivated to putting the charging systems in because they have eVTOL manufacturers setting up shop in those states. So when you see that happening, you'll see the chargers going in, where we don't have that per se, but we are very forward thinking as far as the state's concerned with aviation. And so that the situation is, in a way, build it and they will come. So we believe that within the next 2 years, we will see FAA certified eVTOLs aircrafts flying around. And guess what? If the state doesn't have electrification to charge these vehicles and airport to support the landing and management of the vehicles, they're not going to come to your state. So we're looking at it as, you know, we need to get this done, and we need to get it done as fast as possible. And it's one way to make sure that, or ensure that these vehicles will start utilizing your state, you know, for business.
Well, it sounds like Massachusetts is trying to do all of those airfields. I'm wondering if those other states are just doing, you know, pick and choosing which ones they're doing.
Yeah, I think so, and I think we are too, in a way. That we have a lot of airfields, but what we're doing is we're being very selective, and we have a process. So where the state is thinking, our thinking anyways, is looking at areas that are underserved right now. We have Boston. Majority of the population lives within 30 miles, 40 miles of Boston. We have multiple airports there. Yeah, VTOLs in these electric aircraft could probably land in there, but there's already support, good rail, good bus, and good air support. It's places that are basically good cities that have good populations, but there is no service in terms of rail, in terms of even bus traffic and so forth. So we think those having eVTOL support for, you know, with electricity and vertiports where they could land, or take an existing airport, a small airport that probably has little traffic right now, and turn that into a vertiport, or make it partly a vertiport. So now you have people who basically never had the capability of coming in to Boston or other major cities out on the East Coast to get, you know, medical treatment, to go shopping, to go on vacation, whatever it might be. You know, there'll be a capability to do that relatively quickly. And so we think putting electrification in some of those areas is really the right thing to do. And then on top of that is, you know, job creation. And so if we have a vertiport, we have electric vehicle traffic going in, companies would start looking to build outside of Boston and near and around these airports. That would create jobs. And the reason being is trying to find housing and at a low cost in the Boston area in space to put in businesses is getting more and more expensive and more difficult. So they don't build out right now because it's a traffic issue. You've got to drive down a highway for an hour and a half. If they could move people in cargo quickly through electric aircraft and to the Boston area and back out there, we think it's going to really create jobs and create reasons for people to bring their companies into the area.
And if you're able to do alternative energy that brings the cost down of that electricity, the cost of that travel could be cheaper than driving, cheaper than an Uber from one place to the other.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing too is we don't talk about, but if you've ever listened to one of these aircraft, the noise is really it's extremely quiet. And so that's one of the aspects. We can put these aircraft, right near, I was saying top of the homes, but within the city proper, and they're very quiet, clean. Generate no noise. It's all electric, so the pollution is gone. And so I think it's something that people would hopefully get used to, and having that near their area. And I think the benefits they would derive from having these electric aircraft coming into their area, it will far outweigh any concerns they may have.
Okay, great. So what are the next steps that you're looking at?
So what we're doing right now is putting an awful lot of time. We just released this summer a study. It was more of a marketing economic study to the people of the state that basically explains what these electric aircraft are going to do for the state in terms of basically the transportation we talked about, providing transportation to those underserved cities and towns outside of the Boston area, all the way up to the New York line. Don't forget, we're a very long state, so we go from the Atlantic Ocean all the way up to, Albany is, just 10 miles or so from the state line. So we go right up into New York. And so we've got a lot of area, tremendous amount of area that is underserved with air transportation. And so we think, again, doing that, and we showed if we were to employ this electrification of airports, bring in electric air travel, what that would mean to these outlying cities in terms of job creation, better transportation, bringing medical capabilities and support to the area. Because a lot of people now, we can do remote virtual checkups and so forth, but if you wanted to go to a hospital or needed to go to a hospital in Boston, which there's a lot of hospitals in healthcare areas, some top of the world kind of world-class hospitals, to bring that now within a 30-minute flight in and back home is something that you say, well, we'll just drive. Well, I know people that basically drive 2 hours or more to get into Boston that have medical conditions. It's time consuming, it's a painful drive, traffic, you name it, and they don't even want to do that anymore. And so I think it's going to bring a whole new level of healthcare capabilities to people that really avoid coming into Boston and therefore not seeking out the best kind of medical service they can actually get, and it's right at their fingertips with electric transportation.
And of course, I didn't realize it. What you said of being a long state, I think most people think of Massachusetts only think of Boston. And you've got, like I said, New York, and then there's Connecticut and Vermont right next door. As long as they have the potentially charging stations too.
Right. Exactly. And we share. So within New England, we have weekly meetings or monthly meetings with all the aviation groups within the New England area. That's Massachusetts, it's New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. And be honest, there's some of those states still aren't convinced. They don't really attend the meetings. There are some states that are really interested, see the future, and want to work with us. And so they are taking our lead in this and leveraging everything we've done so they don't have to reinvent the wheel. they don't have as much budget, if you will, to do what we're doing. But by sharing all this information, they are now putting in. Maine has already put in one electrified airport, and they're actually going to be putting in another one. So they're really stepping things up, and I think doing that is now going to allow this electric transportation to be out of Massachusetts into these other states, and you'll just see this starting to blend in. But again, I think the uniqueness of New England is that we all share information. So it's kind of like saying, well, is Ohio going out and talking to all the states around their area? I don't think so. And I don't think a lot of other states are doing it. They're basically trying to get their stuff done. So as we have the budget, we have the talent, we have the capability, we're sharing that with the other states. And hopefully everybody's going to be a win-win situation. I love to go up to Maine. It's a 6-hour drive in places where I like to go, but I like to get on an electric aircraft and take me there in an hour or so. So there's going to be, I think, once we build this network up, I think it's going to open up a whole new economic, sector within the states right now. So I think it's all a good thing.
Oh, sorry. Okay, it sounds like you guys are taking the lead, and are you ready for all these other states to potentially saying, "Hey, how'd you do it?" And then any words of advice for them?
Yeah, so like the organization we have with the New England states, we belong to NACEO, and actually our Deputy Airport Commissioner is the president of NACEO, and that's the National Airport Operators Association. And so all 50 states belong to it, but it's one of those things, not everybody shows up at the table, but we think we're at that level, we're sharing what we're doing with the states, but you have states like Texas. The Dallas, northern Dallas region is doing a lot. Ohio's doing a lot. Florida is doing a lot as well. The Orlando area is really, between Orlando and Miami, is the ideal place where electric aircraft transportation could really help them. So we see a half dozen or so states working in these meetings along the lines of how do I implement the infrastructure to support electric aircraft. So it's starting to take shape and starting to work out. And so we're all of the same mind. And I think it's just a matter of time. And the other thing too is these states do have to allocate money. They got to drive support, and that's political support, that's residents support for this, and it does take some time. But I think it's one of those things. Once we show them what we've done, I think they're going to want to go ahead and do the same thing.
Now, you said bringing in new businesses and stuff like that. Do you think they would be excited enough to help support that, to grow it?
At this particular time, I don't know. I'd be honest with you. I think there could be, I'm just thinking out loud, that some incentives. So you get someone, a business interested in our state. There may be some tax incentives on top of the fact that we have, electric transportation, and we've got a network set up for them to basically do commerce much more easily, to move workforce in and out. There may be, that might be the kind of incentive they would like to see, just something we kick in to motivate them a little bit more. But all of this right now is, I would still say, it's an experiment in process. We're being limited to, lack of electricity at airports. Those things we can resolve. It just takes money there. But again, I think the other part we need to do is work with our own State Department of Commerce and so forth, and educate them on what we're doing with regards to electric transportation, and get them to start promoting it as part of their promotion to bring commerce into the state too. And we haven't done that yet. So it's a process that takes a lot of time and effort. But as we move along, it seems like every 6 months we're completing more and more, and it's starting to grow. So,
is there a good way to track what you guys are doing so we could learn from it?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, one way would be basically, I'd be happy to talk to people and so forth. But I think there are organizations. So if state level organizations were interested, then I would say make sure your airport managers are part of going to the NASAO meetings and so forth, and be a part of the conversation. I mean, a lot of stuff is being presented there that is at their level. Their airport managers, have certain needs, requirements. They speak a certain language, and they understand what we're saying. And I think the smartest thing for them to do is, start joining the meetings and starting joining the conversations, and just ask. Ask the managers, the people attending there, what are they doing and how are they doing it. Take a flight up, come see the airport and talk to us. It's a quick and cheap way to really get up to speed.
It sounds like the best advice is talk about it.
Exactly. Share information. And this is the interesting thing. I've come in 40 some odd years, I've been in the commercial business space, and we all, tend to work together, but there is a competitive situation out there. And I'm not saying there's no competitive things going on with the states, but when it comes to infrastructure, I find that it's a very open sharing kind of environment. People, we're willing, open the kimono, this is what we did, this is how we did it, here's who you need to talk with, and come and see it and learn. I mean, so I think it's open. I don't see that sense when it comes to infrastructure, a real competitive situation. Now, then it's up to that state to leverage what we're trying to do and bring in commerce and serve the people of the state and the needs that they could use this electric transportation by. So, yeah, I think that's the thing to do is motivate the airport managers. And why don't we have electric? Look what we could do. Use our example as a way of doing things, and talk to the other states that are doing similar things that we're doing. But, it's like the electric car. You talk about electric cars 3 years ago. It was still fairly new. I mean, Tesla was out there. Tesla's got, I just read, well over 3 million cars sold. And then you've got all the other auto companies that are basically selling electric vehicles. And now it's becoming kind of a norm that you see. There is no electric vehicles out there to be had today. But I think this industry will move as fast, if not faster, than the electric cars will do. And that's why I think it's important for states to look at electric vehicles, such as aircraft and so forth, as a means to grow their state and serve their people in such a way that clean energy, fast travel, quiet travel, I think it speaks volumes. And again, a lot of these, when we say eVTOL, that's an electric vertical takeoff and landing. You don't need runways. So you could basically put an airport, if you will, or a vertiport as they're called, in a mall parking lot if you wanted to. Doesn't take a lot of space, and you're bringing now air travel much closer to the people, as opposed to driving. I live 30 some odd miles from Logan Airport. I hate the drive. 30 miles, what are you talking about? I have 90 minutes to get through for a 30-minute drive. These rural places don't have, they have a bigger drive if they want to go through one of our major airport. But if they had a shuttle that would take them there in less than 30 minutes, that's a huge thing. So there's all ways to look at it, but I just think it's important that other states get looking into the electric vehicles, looking at their airports, and asking why we don't have this and just start moving forward with it.
And of course, we can use the competition of the actual vendors to get the best deal. Okay, do you want to go Beta or some other for the charging?
Right.
Do you different utilities? Okay, what do you offer? And then also the different eVTOL makers, manufacturers. Which ones do you want to be the first in this area?
Right.
So
Right. Yeah, and that's how some of these states really, that the other states that are basically working on the electrification and so forth, they actually courted and have eVTOL manufacturers putting factories in Georgia, the Carolinas, Ohio. Joby is opening the Joby will probably be one of the first companies, they and Bedard, I think, in my opinion, will be certified, and they will be within 2 years having these aircraft available. Ohio basically gave them a compelling reason why to build there, and this is a California-based company. Come build here, and they did. And so you're talking thousands of jobs. You're talking an aircraft manufacturer right in the state. So that's a huge economic increase to the revenue of the state, jobs, and all the things that go along with that. So you might not get an aircraft manufacturer in your state, but if you can get the airports ready and get these vehicles, you'll find other companies willing to move to your state, and it's a good incentive for other companies. And that's what we're trying to do: serve the people. And part of serving the people is not just personally, but also helping bring commerce to their local cities and towns, because we have this new form of transportation.
okay, great. Any last words? I'll give you the closing word segment.
Well, the only thing I could say would be for anybody interested to really take a look at it and talk to your airport managers. Ask them, are they looking at electric transportation? If there's a state by you, or if you're going through a state and there might be electric traffic going through there, stop by, talk to them. If they get back through you, or if you want to channel someone through me, that's fine too. I would basically, but I think it's really important for cities and towns and states to start embracing this. It's kind of like now, if you hadn't put any electric charging systems in your state for vehicles, what do you think the situation would be in those states? What do you think the citizens would be screaming for? You're just telling them that there will be no electric vehicles. It's no different with aircraft, because what you're going to see in the next 5 years is a lot of electric aircraft. And if they're not flying in your state, you're going to have a real economic problem, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Great. Well, Fred, thank you very much for spending some time with you. Very informative.
Thank you.
I'm glad we're both learning things here at the Regional Air Cargo and Carrier Association's Conference 2023 in Scottsdale, Arizona. You guys have a great day. Thank you.